Once upon a time in a faraway kingdom, Disney was quite the video game force. Between Mickey's many adventures, the movie adaptations, and even games based on the Disney afternoon, the Mouse House was responsible for a lot of great gaming moments in the 1980s and 90s. With all this talk about Steamboat Willie finally going into the public domain, it made me wonder what Electronic Gaming Monthly thought of Disney, specifically the 8-bit games. Which beloved character did they love the most? As it turns out, EGM reviewed a total of 23 games on 8-bit consoles, including the Nintendo Entertainment System and Sega Master System, as well as handhelds like the Game Boy, Game Gear, and Game Boy Color. This includes most of the movie and TV tie-ins and the franchise titles that came from companies like Sega, Ubisoft, and Activision. Of course, there are a few Disney adventures that EGM either missed out on or wasn't around for, such as a big one like Mickey Mousecapade, but I don't think that's going to spoil any of the fun. What we're going to do today is count down the best and worst 8-bit Disney games using Electronic Gaming Monthly's own words and scores. There's no editorializing here, we're just going to focus on what the critics said back when these games first came out. So get your mouse ears ready and don't you dare say anything bad about Goofy, because this is EGM Ranks Disney's 8-bit era.
Race across America with Mickey and his friends. Mickey Speedway USA, rated E for everyone. Now on Game Boy Color. Get into it!
We're kicking things off with number 23, Disney's The Emperor's New Groove on the Game Boy Color. Here's a textbook example of a perfectly average 2D platform game. The Emperor's New Groove features solid control, but absolutely nothing in it stands out as interesting or inspired. Barring the license, there's no compelling reason to choose this game over any of the other character-driven action titles available on the Game Boy Color. Most gamers will want to look elsewhere for their Disney fix. Number 22, Disney's DuckTales 2 on the Game Boy. DuckTales 2 was a good idea, but it gets quickly lost on the tiny screen. You get a sense of a grand adventure, but the game gets tiresome quickly with so-so graphics and okay control. Capcom has been good at some Game Boy titles in the past, just look at what they did with the Mega Man series. But DuckTales 2 doesn't cut it. Number 21, Mickey's Dangerous Chase on the Game Boy. It appears Mickey's going to be a hit no matter which system he appears on. Mickey's Dangerous Chase is a fun game to play, sometimes even silly. The option to pick Minnie is different, since Mickey is always saving her in the other versions. No matter though, this is a good all-around cart. Number 20, Mickey's Speedway USA on the Game Boy Color. Micro Machines style racing featuring cute little Disney characters is what you get with Mickey's Speedway USA. The other portions, such as driving school, only serve as a mild diversion and certainly don't hold as much weight as the racing. So, essentially, if you're not a fan of the ever-tricky overhead perspective, well, you'll end up frustrated here. The problem, of course, is the limited amount of track visible on the screen at any one moment. The direction arrows help somewhat, but in the end, it's all about memorizing each and every turn. Number 19, Disney's The Jungle Book on the Game Gear. Making the rounds on seemingly all systems, this version of the popular Disney title holds up pretty well here, although the control needs some fine-tuning. The levels are huge and graphically well done, and the distinctive characters are all recognizable. Mastering the attack does take some time, but overall, this is a fine Disney conversion. Number 18, Mickey's Ultimate Challenge on the Game Boy. It may be a bit easy for the more experienced players, but even a veteran in my age group can appreciate the different puzzles. Sure, it's Game Boy, but the version I played was colorized, so it wasn't too bad. The graphics are pretty cool, yet the sounds are mediocre. I really enjoyed the variety of games, but it seems to end too quickly. Yet the puzzles can get tough on hard mode. A neat little game to pass the time. Number 17, Disney's The Little Mermaid on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I've got to review this with the right attitude, because after all, it is for little girls. Beyond the fact that the action is really toned down, there aren't a lot of bad things to say about the Mermaid, other than it does get somewhat boring after a while. Little girls should love it, I don't. Number 16, Disney's The Jungle Book on the Nintendo Entertainment System. This is the NES? Where did that animation come from? Seriously now, I've never seen a Nintendo Entertainment System game that looks or plays like this game does. There are loads of items, and the levels themselves are very challenging. However, you really have to be precise in the timing of jumps, or it's a long way to the bottom. The music is decent for an NES game as well. It's one of the best buys for the NES out there. Number 15, Disney's Beauty and the Beast, a board game adventure on the Game Boy Color. Don't be turned off by the kiddie license. This game isn't half bad. Like a shrunken and dummied down Mario Party, Beauty and the Beast is a simple board game that's ideal for more than one player. EGM editors Shu, Crispin, and Sean all took turns on the thing and had a decent time. Shu and Crispin like the Game & Watch Gallery style minigames. They could see picking this game up every once in a while when they're really bored. Sean, on the other hand, took the role of Beast a little too seriously and frightened us. Number 14, Disney's DuckTales 2 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Alright! DuckTales 2 is enough to make me want to dig out my NES again. The gameplay is wonderfully smooth for an NES game. The game has colorful graphics and has challenging puzzles to solve. The music wasn't very annoying either. It may seem a bit tough for the smaller tykes, but makes a great game otherwise. Number 13, Disney's Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers 2 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. For an 8-bit platformer, Rescue Rangers comes off really well, and if anything, makes you wish for a 16-bit version. Capcom has always done well with cartoony characters and themes, and this is certainly no exception. Number 12, Deep Duck Trouble, starring Donald Duck on the Game Gear. This version of Donald Duck and his wacky antics comes off really well. After Uncle Scrooge brought home a mysterious pendant, something strange happens to him and Donald must help. Very large levels and nifty icons to find really spice up the game. There's a lot of cool bosses, and the game is just plain fun.
Dad, I want a Sega Genesis or Game Gear and the Lion King game. Don't blow it.
Sega Genesis or Game Gear? Mega Genesis or Game Gear? Mega Genesis for reindeer.
Sometimes parents can get confused.
Mega Pegasus for reindeer?
That's why, with the Lion King pack from Sega, the Lion King game comes with a Genesis or Game Gear.
Lion King soundtrack CD free with every Lion King pack purchase.
Tiggy?
Lion King packs for Sega Genesis and Game Gear each sold separately. Batteries not included.
And we're back with number 11, Walt Disney's Alice in Wonderland on the Game Boy Color. Alice in Wonderland is what a kid's game should be. All too often, half-rate games come along that say that they're for kids, but they just plain suck. Alice in Wonderland, however, is well made and should provide hours of fun for any youngster. Could it also be for an older gamer who's a fan of Disney games? You could get away with playing it, and a couple levels would prove to be either mildly difficult or insanely repetitive, but overall, it really is made for kids. Number 10, Disney's Tarzan on the Game Boy Color. One of the most amazing things about this game is how it emulates the opening sequence of the actual movie itself. That's right, full motion video on the Game Boy Color. Flashy intros aside, Tarzan reminds me of Aladdin on the Genesis, with its fluid animation, and lush graphics. While the first few levels are painful exercises in finding the banana, the game picks up later as you can play as Tarzan, Jane, and Turk. The controls are simple and responsive enough, making this a painless experience for fans of the movie. A well-done portable alternative to the PlayStation game. Number 9. Disney's Aladdin on the Game Gear. Not bad, Sega. It's no Genesis conversion, but it's still a blast nonetheless. At first play, I thought the gameplay only consisted of chase-type scenes, but I was happy to see that there were more action scenes as well. The animation is very good, although the levels seem to be a bit short. The tunes are okay, but hey, they're 8-bit. If you buy one Game Gear game all year, Aladdin is definitely a good choice. Number 8. Legend of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse on the Game Gear. Game Gear games seem to be getting better every time I look at them, and here's the proof. This game plays wonderfully and almost has the look and playability of a 16-bit game. I like all the Mickey games, from the cute graphics to the loads of technique. Even on the Game Gear, the crisp color of the characters and tons of interaction keep you impressed. Young or old, this is great for long trips. Number 7. Disney's The Lion King on the Game Gear. Now for some color! The Lion King is another fairly decent portable. It follows the story of the film and has some graphic changes from the 16-bitter. The most notable of which is the stampede scene. It's a little easier, but that's okay. It was kinda tough before. As for playability, The Lion King holds its own and can hang with others. Veteran gamers can get into it easily, as well as kids. Number 6. Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse on the Game Gear. Mickey Mouse finally brought justice to die-hard Master System fans, and this loose translation of the same code shows us that the Game Gear is able to deliver great games. The action scenarios are supported by all kinds of techniques and the graphics that do make the Game Gear look good. Number 5. Disney's Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Capcom does it again with another Disney title that first looks like a kiddie game but ends up turning into one of the better Super Mario-style action games available. Great cartoon graphics and superb gameplay blend together, giving you a cart packed with fun. Number 4. Land of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse on the Game Gear. The fluidity of this game is really pretty incredible on the Game Gear. Both the gameplay and the animation are rendered in a smooth, high-quality form that complements the simple yet multifaceted technique. This game is a nice addition to the Game Gear library and one of the better action titles available for any system. Number 3. Disney's Donald Duck Goin' Quackers on the Game Boy Color. Leave it to Ubisoft to show Game Boy Color developers how a real platform game should be made. Fans of the genre should rejoice in the release of Goin' Quackers, a cart good enough to make Nintendo's pocket-sized system your console of choice for days on end. Surprisingly fluid animation and vivid color put this one in an aesthetic league comparable to the classic Sega Genesis carts bearing Donald Duck's name. Portable games rarely get better than this. Number 2. Disney's DuckTales on the Nintendo Entertainment System. DuckTales appears as though it was created with younger players in mind, with options such as selecting any level at the beginning of the game. This doesn't detract from the superior graphics and play mechanics, however, and despite some easy areas, DuckTales is too good to ignore. And finally, at number 1, it's Castle of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse on the Sega Master System. Excellent! And who thought the Sega Master System was dead? Anyone with any decency should get this game. The graphics are marvelous, the music is stupendous, the control is amazing. This game is almost every bit as good as the Genesis version. Enough said.
We invited an expert team to our laboratory to give us their opinions of Disney's DuckTales video game from Capcom.
Yes! awesome!
You'll have exciting adventures helping Scrooge McDuck escape danger and become the richest duck in the world.
Cool. Totally hot. Way radical, man! Excellent!
Join the DuckTales gang in Disney's DuckTales for Nintendo by Capcom. Also look for Mickey Mousecapade.
It's a quacker! Oh!
Hey, thanks for watching us look at these classic reviews. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we have more than 50 episodes of this EGM Ranks series, including franchises as diverse as Mario, Final Fantasy, Street Fighter, Contra, Resident Evil, Burnout, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and more. We'll be back in a few weeks with another Disney list, this time looking at the 16-bit games. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite 8-bit Disney game? With all those Disney Afternoon titles and the Illusion series from Sega, you really do have a ton of great games to choose from. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with more reviews as well as a brand new Review Crew episode. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,